all the stories you know and love in a me sort of way, bringing religion, spirituality, and who knows what else.
Listen to the Pastor with the Master battle the thunder from down under.
On Religion, Ho-Ho's Way. Broadcasting from the Cottage Studio, welcome to Religion, Ho-Ho's Way, and as always, I'm your host, Ho-Ho. How y'all's doing? I hope you're doing good. I really do. So, I know last episode I told you that I got 2 episodes that are coming up right around the corner. In fact, this one was supposed to be one of them. I was supposed to be talking about false idols or false prophets. One or the other. I don't know which one I was going to do first, but, you know, I got taken a different direction. I really did. It happens. You know, it happens. And one of the reasons why is, you know, it felt like it was going to end up being more of a, you know, too much of a targeted attack. Okay. And I didn't really want to do that. You know, I wanted to kind of take this opportunity to maybe explain myself a little bit on that. Okay. Now, at this point, I really don't know what the title of this episode is going to be. I really don't. You know, I have no clue. This is happening. You know, I don't know what the title is going to be. You all are going to find out before I know right now, you know. But there's a couple things about me that, you know, I kind of, one of which you'll find out. If you know, great. If not, then, you know, maybe you'll find out. And if that's the case, then you're meant to. Otherwise, I ain't going to talk about it. We ain't unpacking that one right now. Another thing about me is I despise the institution. You know, I really do. I despise with a passion, disdain for the institution. Because what we have too often, or what too often happens, is, you know, when with false prophets, with false idols, you know, it's you know, with false prophets, it's that little nugget of truth that is used to cover up an ocean of lies. And all too often that's the case. With false idols, it's, you know, they stand in the way between us and, you know, through our journey to salvation. You know, and sometimes it's even to the point to where they lie to you in such a way that keeps you in bondage, that keeps you in chains, that keeps you attached to your sin. And both, to me, it's evil. It's just evil. I mean, there's no other way I can put it. You know, I got to call a spade, you know. But God taught us to, you know, love the sinner but hate the sin. And you can do that. You know, you really can. So, you know, I don't want to make anybody feel like it is a personal attack on them. You know, I really don't. You know, I'm an author. I'm an aspiring author. You know, you'll never read them. I'm just saying, but you know, I'm an author. I like, you know, writing. Okay. And in writing, one of the things that you know, you get taught is, you know, when you have a strong protagonist, you know, a strong hero, you have to have an equally, no, that's not really the proper way to put it. You got to have a villain that is more evil than your hero is good. Okay. Because far too often people spend, you know, their time developing the character of the good guy, you know, the protagonist. That's what most of us do. Or in watching movies, we spend most of our time focusing on that. But it's the villain that deserves more time. Because one of the things that ends up happening, or one of the things that we need to know about the villain, is everybody is the hero in their own story. I'm sure most of you have seen, the Marvel movies, the Avengers and whatnot. Okay, Thanos thought he was doing the right thing. He believed it with such passion that he was willing to do whatever was necessary to kill, to unalive half of the entire universe, even knowing, even having demonstrated that doing that on his own planet didn't work. Everybody still ended up dying. Well, all but basically him and his own daughter. Well, actually, I don't think. Well, he did it on his, whatever. Anyway, we're all the hero of our own story. Even after demonstrating earlier, before the famous snap, that path was not a path that would work, he still went there, because if he would have stopped and analyzed what it was that he was doing, then there's no way that he would have followed through. But yet he just got done killing so many people, he had to. He was locked in his belief. No matter how wrong it was, he was locked in it. The farther you get into the darkness, the more you will fight any bringer of light, because you do not want that shined on you. You don't. In the Matrix, whenever Cypher is talking to Agent Smith, he says, ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss. I'm reminded of Judas Iscariot, Judas the betrayer, because think about it. Most people, when they think of him, the only thing they recall is that he was the betrayer. That's it. He killed himself. Play stupid games, you get stupid prizes. There's no remorse for him. There's no tear that is shed for him. But have you ever stopped and thought about what he went through? What happened? The torment and torture that he had to have felt. I mean, think about it. The Last Supper, Jesus washed his feet too. As much as you may hate what happened, it was a necessity. It had to happen. He had to be betrayed and hung on that cross in order for you to get your salvation. It had to happen. Call it a necessary evil, if you will. But it had to happen. If it wasn't Judas, it would have been somebody else. I mean, let's not forget, none of these guys were Boy Scouts, okay? None of them were Boy Scouts. You're talking fishermen, several of them. Peter, I think, was one of them, okay? We're talking about rude and crude people, all right? We're not talking about, the upper echelon of society here. We're talking kids that were told to leave their father and go on their own path. We're talking about fishermen who, by faith, they threw their net in the water one more time. We're quick to talk bad about, what was it, Peter that walked on the water towards Jesus? And there's all kinds of things to talk about on that one. I'll have to write that one down, because the walking on the water, whoo, That's a lot of story right there. Let me write that down right quick, because if I don't write it down, I'm going to forget about it. Holy crap. All right. Walking on water. Hold on. Walking on water. Okay. Well, let's put that R in there. Okay. Sometimes I got to write things down before I forget that whole ADD thing. You know, that was a good idea. We got to talk about that later on. Okay, so back to Judas. It had to happen. As much as people condemn his actions, I mean, what are you really thinking? You know, that if he hadn't have done that, then Jesus would have lived to be the ripe old age of whatever? No. He came here as a lamb to slaughter. He came here to die on the cross. It had to happen. You know, I mean, the real question is, why did the task go to him? You know, why that? But think about it, though. He was living in the presence of the Son of God. And back to that whole aspect of, you know, the other disciples were not Boy Scouts by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, think about Peter, for crying out loud. You know, what happened after Jesus was betrayed by Judas? What happened? You know, the guards came and Peter took out his sword and cut like what one of the hands off or the arm off of the guy, of one of the guards. I mean, dude, Peter was a hothead. He had anger issues. But what did Jesus do? He picked up the hand or the arm, whatever it was, put it back on the guy, and because, you know, you're not dying today, Peter, because that's what would have happened. You know, Peter would have been taken into custody too, and he would have been put on that cross right next to Jesus. But instead, you know, Jesus had other plans. God had other plans for him. It's not your time to die, because he knew that Peter was important to rebuilding the church once he was gone in Jesus' own image. He knew that Peter was going to play an intricate role in that. And so, yeah, Peter being a hothead, chopping off somebody's arm that was just doing their job. Jesus said, "Not today, Satan. You can't have him yet. He's important to my plan." And this is after Satan thought he landed the biggest victory he had ever seen. Little did he know. But back to Judas. Back to Judas. It was only after he betrayed his mentor, his teacher, the person whom he lived alongside for 3 years, watched him perform miracle after miracle, did he figure out just who Jesus was. That baffles the mind. Doesn't it baffle yours? It totally baffles the mind. I mean, how can you live in his presence, witnessing everything that happened, even being part of it yourself, laying hands and miracles happen? How, after all of that? I mean, it was amazing whenever, you know, John the Baptist, he's in prison. Before he dies, you know, he sent one of his disciples to go talk to Jesus, like, dude, I got to know. I have to know if my life, if this sacrifice has any meaning. I have to know that I have fulfilled my purpose in paving the way for the Son of God. I have to know. And what was Jesus' response to the disciple whenever he was approached? He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He said, the lame walk, the blind see. That's what he said. He didn't give a yes. He didn't give a no. Because the miracles speak for themselves. The signs are clear as the nose on your face. That's what he went back to John the Baptist and told him. It's like, dude, everything that we were being told would happen by the Son of God is happening through this guy. How powerful is that? I mean, holy crap. And after realizing that Judas had betrayed not just the Son of God, but the literal heir to the throne, he was the King of the Jews. That's why INRI was a plaque that was put on top of his, on top of the cross, because he was the literal King of the Jews. That's whom he was. It was his birthright. Only then that Judas, being so overwhelmed with guilt, not knowing his own place and what was going to come next, so distraught over what he did, he couldn't bear the knowledge of knowing that even though it was necessary, which that might not have even occurred to him. I mean, I'm sure it didn't. I mean, how could it? Basically, your action single-handedly caused everything that he knew was coming. All because Jesus rocked the boat. He threatened them. He threatened their power structure. He was going to change everything. He was changing everything. That's why they killed him. Because he was threatening their power. That's why he did it. Him doing what he did was a necessary evil that won us our salvation, that granted us our salvation. I mean, how else was he going to go down to hell, grab the keys, and come back up to free us from the binds of our own sin? And he took that sin down to hell with him. How else was that going to happen if he wasn't sent? I mean, wasn't it prophesied in the Bible that it would be, basically one of his closest companions, one of his disciples, that he was going to be betrayed? Wasn't that in there somewhere? I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me. I'm not 100% sure, but it had to happen. That's my point. It had to happen. His presence in the story is a crucial, necessary part of the story. If that was your mission, if you were the one that was chosen for one reason or the other, think about it. Even the devil can be used for the glory of the kingdom of God. That is what is so amazing about that, because even though the devil wrote the freaking book, or, didn't write the book, but he read the book, even though he knew it front and back. We know this from whenever Jesus was tempted in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. We know this already. Why did he fall for it? I mean, he should have known what was going to happen. Maybe even he didn't believe it, but Judas did. After the betrayal, Judas understood what he did, wrought with pain. And how could you not be? Because all in all, Judas was a good guy. Let's be honest about it. He really was. He was a good guy. Okay, he was expecting a king, because that's who Jesus said he was. And Judas felt betrayed. I mean, let's be honest about that. Judas felt betrayed. He felt that, here we have, the heir to the throne who was supposed to, free us from the Egyptian rule. And nothing. That's not what he's here to do. That wasn't what we were told we were getting. He was upset. But he didn't understand. He didn't understand Jesus' purpose on being here. You know, he said, what was it he said? I don't remember the translation, or at least I don't remember the original words, but it's, you know, my kingdom is not of this world. You know, I forget the actual Greek, I think is what it was, you know, because I highly doubt that, you know, Jesus, when talking with King Herod, I believe it was, I highly doubt he was speaking Aramaic at the time. I mean, just so you know, they spoke multiple languages back there, because you had Aramaic, which was, you know, the language of the Jews, but at the same time, they were also speaking Greek, because that was the language of the empire that they were living in. So, I mean, they spoke multiple languages and probably multiple dialects. So, I mean, I don't remember the actual words. There was a time I knew it. I just don't know it now. And that's why it's necessary for me to wait for those 2 episodes. Because something's coming. I am sure that in some ways you feel it. You know, one of the things about me too is I am somebody whom despises. I have disdain for the institution. We've already talked about that. And it's the institution that I have issues with. It's not the people or the individual person, I guess would be a better way of putting it. It's the institution. But like I was saying earlier, okay, the farther some people get from the light, the more they will fight you when you try to shine a light and to lead them out of the darkness. Some people just can't handle it. You know, in the Matrix, it talks about, when Morpheus is talking with, when Morpheus was talking to Neo, about the Matrix, he said that some people believe the lie so strongly that they will die to defend it. And that's a sad state of affairs that we're in. We are in some dark days. We really are. Never have I seen such a stray. Things were pretty bad in that ancient Greece before the fall of Rome. Things were pretty bad. Things were pretty bad in Sodom and Gomorrah before they were turned to rubble. Things were looking pretty bad in the days of Noah before the flood. I don't know exactly where we're at, but God says there'll be signs. Scripture says there will be signs. And he says that, when he blows the trumpet, or when he gives the command to blow the trumpet, when that happens, you better be ready to go. He gave us his word, and his word is all the signs that we need to look out for. It's the roadmap for what's coming. And he says, when you see these things happening, get your stuff together. There was another S word that God said in the Bible, get it straight. And when that trumpet blows, you best have your bag right there, because if you don't, if you are up on your roof, you ain't got time to go inside and get it. It best be at the bottom of that ladder waiting for you to go. Because when it happens, when it comes as a thief in the night, you ain't going to know what's coming. You ain't going to hear the freight train before the tornado comes. You ain't going to be able to see the weather before the hurricane hits. And by the way, I hope, it's going on right now. So by the time you hear this, it'll already be done. But it ain't like we're going to have any warning. And it's one of them things that, people, wow. Let's unpack this right quick. When it's time, go. We've all got access to the word. It's our choice whether we read it, whether we believe it, but we all have access to it. And Scripture even says that even if you hear the trumpet and you're smart enough to get the heck out, but you were dumb enough to pay attention to the signs and you wasn't prepared, that the people that were prepared better not help you out, because we can't. We prepared for ourselves. Why didn't you prepare? There's several parables in the Bible where Jesus talks about just that. We can't. You chose who to believe. You may have had ears, but you didn't pay attention. At least you knew good enough to get out. But don't expect people to help you, because we can't. Not in the beginning. And those first times right after is going to be crucial. I have a feeling. Can't say that. Got to watch myself, I got to watch myself. I got to be careful. The enemy isn't the people. Here's my whole point on this episode. Okay? The enemy isn't the person. It's the people. It is those who chose to believe the lies and fight on the wrong side. Your fight is not with an individual, that the sinner, but the sin. You got to know who the enemy is. Love the sinner, hate the sin. Love a person, despise the institution. You can do both. I do this, it's out of love, doing this. It really is. Okay, good. I didn't press something at my. The message in doing this is always out of love. It always is. Okay. And if I don't feel as though I can adequately do that, then I'm not going to bring the message. I ain't going to do it. But the message ain't always going to be, unicorns and sprinkles and rainbows. It ain't always going to be that. Sometimes the message is not a positive message. It's out of love, but it ain't always positive. False prophets. Beware of a salesman selling snake oil. Beware of calling Cleo if all she's going to give you is good news, because life is hard. Bad things happen. That's another thing we can unpack. But I ain't getting there. I ain't going there today. That's going to be part of a different show. So hope y'all's take what I've said to heart. I really do. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Love the sinner, hate the sin. Love a person, despise the institution. The fight ain't with the individual, it's with the institution. Yeah, that's for a different episode. Anyway, you know what? Y'all have yourself a great one. You know, man, I tell you what, okay? The downloads are happening at a point to where it's like, dude, I can spend 5 hours behind this microphone. You know, I got enough stuff written in that little bitty notebook that we can do this for a good 5 hours. I ain't going to take that much of your time. And why would I be stopping at 5 hours? Because over there in Spreaker land, my hosting platform for the podcast, that's all the time I got. I don't know if there's any type of limit over on YouTube. I have no idea. You know, I don't know if there is a time limit on episodes that you can upload. I don't know. But I know over here, all I got is 5 hours. There is so much. But I got to be respectful of your time. And speaking of, I thank you for being here. I thank you for checking it out. I thank you for, you know, tuning in, you know. There are some good shows coming around the bend. I mean, some of the episodes I've got planned out, holy freaking crap. One of them, let's just say this. Science, in truth, screams creator. It does. Science is not the enemy of faith. Maybe that'll be the title of that show. Science is not the enemy of faith. It isn't. When science is taught in truth, where do you think science even came from? The institution. Again, I have issues with institutions. Where do you think it came from? It started from the church. And it wasn't abandoned by the church. Science abandoned the church because science wanted to be worshiped. We all worship at the altar of something. I talked about on the last episode, or, you know, whatever. You know, everybody wants to worship something. Science wanted to be worshiped. And it was science that abandoned Christianity. Science that abandoned faith. It wasn't the faith, and it wasn't Christianity that abandoned science. You know, that's not the way it was. When science is taught in truth, science screams creation. We're going to unpack that one on the next episode. Until then, y'all have yourself a great one. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you for listening to Religion Ho-Ho's Way. For a complete listing of episodes and shows, you can head to thehohoshow.com and click on the episode tab. See you next time.